What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with another tune provided by a great friend of the channel, Kim, for a selection of tracks that I wanted to get through this weekend. And this is another group that I've heard people talk about, I've seen people make reference to, and has been waiting in the wings in terms of me doing any reactions, but this seemed like a good time to start, and that is The. So I really enjoy the name. Like, there's so many bands, especially bands meaning distinct from solo artists, that have a name in the form of the somethings, the plural noun. So to have a band named The, it's just funny, it's a bit, meta-referential, there's some comedy there. But yes, apparently this tune is from 1989 and it's called Armageddon Days Are Here Again. Kim mentioned that this was written in the context or in the time of the first US/UK military actions in the Gulf region, like specifically Iraq, but the Gulf War as it was referred to back then, and that Matt Johnson, I'm guessing also the lead singer, but certainly the songwriter, talks about religion and its role in geopolitics and military matters and the perhaps mental state that such beliefs can precipitate in terms of not shying away from events that should be awful and reacted to as such, but perhaps are seen as part of this teleological divine plan, and the danger in that, again, as someone who listens to a lot of punk rock, and including bands like Subhumans and their song Religious Wars and many others of a similar vein, that certainly is a line of analysis that I am quite familiar with and sympathetic towards. So in any case, let's give it a listen. This is The track is Armageddon Days Are Here Again, and as I said, I think it's from 1989. What a shift that was.
Are you ready, Jesus? Buddha? Muhammad? Okay. We're all right, fellas. Let's go! 5 miles high as a road fly, giving vapor trails across a blood-red sky. Moon in from the east, the hordes of west, with balaclava helmets over their heads. Yes. If you think that Jesus Christ is coming, honey, you've got another thing coming. If he ever finds out who's hijacked his name, they'll cut out his heart and turn in his grave. Islam is rising, the Christians mobilizing, the world is on its elbows and knees. It's the gospel of message and worships the creeds. It's war she cried, it's war she cried. This is war. Drop your possessions, all you simple folk. You fight them on the beaches in your underclothes. You thank the good Lord for raising the Union Jack. You watch your ship sail out of harbor and the bodies come floating back. Watch your ship sail out of harbor and the bodies come floating back. But if you think that Jesus Christ is coming, honey, you've got another thing coming. If he ever finds out who's hijacked his name, he'll cut out his heart and turn in his grave. Islam is rising, the Christians mobilizing, the world is on its elbows and knees. It's forgotten the message and worships the creeds. were to stand up today, he'd be gunned down cold by the CIA. But the lights that now burn brightest behind stained glass will cast the darkest shadows upon the human heart. But God didn't build himself that throne. God doesn't live in Israel or Rome. God doesn't belong to the Yankee dollar. God doesn't plant their bombs for Hezbollah. God doesn't even go to church. And God won't send us down to hell to burn. God will remind us what we already know, that the human race is about to reap what it's sown. Islam is rising, the Christians mobilizing. The world is on its elbows and knees. It's forgotten the message and worships the creeds. The world is on its elbows and knees. It's forgotten the message and worships the creeds. The world is on its elbows and knees. It's forgotten the message and worships the creed. The world is on its elbows and knees. It's forgotten the message and worships the creed. Armageddon days are here again. Armageddon days are here again. Armageddon days are here again. Armageddon days are here.
Oof. Clearly I need to listen to more the. Wow, incredible. Number one, very similar thematically to the song I mentioned, Religious Wars by Subhumans. And again, even if you embrace supernatural belief systems and, support certain religious ideas, I think it's an apropos idea that, if these figures were alive today, if they were watching modern humanity act, they would suggest that, you've forgotten the messages and you're just worshiping the creeds and you're, sort of dividing and conquering in ways that are very much non-humanistic, and the cultural and political and military leaders' utilization or indeed hijacking of certain concepts and ideas and beliefs to serve purposes that are destructive and exploitative and disastrous for the folks who are actually the vehicles or cogs that are used to accomplish those goals, those fighting on the shores in their underclothes, and those who are driven by sincere beliefs but are now, again, weapons in these large-scale forces that are, again, manipulative, exploitative, and destructive, both in specific circumstances and to the human race more broadly. I think that's a very insightful line of thinking, and one which is all too tragic. And so I do like also they're not pulling any punches or playing favorites here. They're talking about, what was the line about, God is not in Jerusalem or Rome, and, making reference to Buddha and Muhammad and Jesus, and, this is happening across the cultural religious spectrum, and the reaping of what we've sown as a species at large, it will come for us all. It's not going to be selective, or there's not going to be a chosen group that is spared the consequences of these short-sighted, if also, what's the right word? Again, when people are doing what they believe is righteous, but have so distorted any legitimate messages that may have been at the foundation of those beliefs that they're now serving almost the exact opposite of what they're thinking they're doing. The tragedy of that, I think, comes through. I like the sonics. Of course, there's these big choral vocals which sound sort of like church singing or, religious choral delivery, but then they're mixed with this up-tempo and almost like cheeky synth rock type of sound, which, again, it sounds like a very enthusiastic sonic atmosphere for the dire sound of or for the dire themes that are at play. I'm actually thinking there's an acid techno track. I could look it up, but it's something like No Religion, No War, something like that. I'll look it up in a moment. But it also makes reference to no Buddha, no Allah, no Jesus, no something else. I forget what the full refrain is, but it's playing off similar ideas that without these ideas serving as anchors weighing down particular religious and cultural communities, or without the distortion of those ideas providing an unfortunate template for the violence and destruction of humanity, maybe there might be a path to more hope and less conflict, less discord. I gotta look it up, because if I haven't reacted to that tune, I need to do so soon. Let's see. Okay, it's called Head Rush. The group is called Head Rush Tactics, and I want to say Chris Liberator is part of that, but the track is called Your Religion, Their Control, which is very much, again, I think part of the theme at play here. So let me just make sure, because I really need to react to this soon. It's Chris Liberator and Ant, aka Anthony Wilson, and I actually just reacted to a tune by Ant recently. But yes, ultimately I gotta come back and react to that track soon, because it really does. It's on a release that's called No Religion, No Government. I love that. So yeah, the release itself is called No Religion, No Government, and the track is called Your Religion, Their Control. So it seems to fit right in with this. Now again, I get that ideas like this and songs like Subhuman's Religious Wars and, perhaps there's a Black Sabbath song that, is it War Pigs? Yes, ultimately, I get songs like this for those who are, very pious and like to think of religions and maybe their beliefs in particular as a force for good, or at least if they're faithfully followed. I get why this might be controversial, but at the same time, I think there is, certainly in this song, a layer of interpretation that says, look, some of these ideas are good in principle, and if you believe them in your heart of hearts, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge the way they are often used to, drum up willingness to fight, and the idea that, well, the Armageddon Days are here, so, you have to kind of fall in line with, these prophecies and these scriptures that suggest things are going to be very bad before the teleological, ascension, or whatever the, rapture, whatever the particular belief is. The way that these ideas are used in processes which cause great suffering and death and disillusionment, I think there has to be an acknowledgement there. So yeah, again, these are not easy issues, especially, when you're shooting YouTube videos where, as I've said from the beginning of my channel, everybody's welcome, and it doesn't necessarily matter, what you believe, as long as, you enjoy music and come to discuss it with, earnest and open minds. But yes, ultimately, I love songs like this, and it makes me want to hear the more. So thank you again to Kim. Do let me know what you think of the tune, and I will see you next time. Peace.